So I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to do a video about this. Of course, this is about Tim Kennedy and him getting, in his mind, taken out of context for some statements he made regarding masculinity after the school shootings. This is vaguely MMA just because Tim Kennedy was a UFC veteran and a Strikeforce veteran. Um, but because there was a lot of crossover with him and the MMA media, I figured it'd probably be worth touching on. So what I'll do first is I'll play his comments from Fox and Friends, and I'll show some of the headlines about it, and then just talk more about just the general state of journalism, what I think they're doing wrong.
Has been demonized when identifying toxic masculinity is more celebrated than a man's achievements. What we are seeing is the most vile form of that rage being realized. Masculinity is about being a protector. Masculinity is about integrity.
Tim Kennedy joins us now from Austin. Good morning to you, Tim.
Top of the morning. How you doing?
Top of the morning to you. UFC fighter and Special Forces sniper. And you have said that America doesn't have a gun problem. We have a young, angry male problem. Elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that somebody's saying that there's a toxic masculinity problem, when in fact there's not enough of masculinity. What we're doing to our boys right now is we're stunting them. Like we are built, we are hardwired to do incredible things. Protect is one of them. You know, when you take a boy in school and you say you can't act this way, you can't be energetic this way, you can't explore, you shouldn't do dangerous things, you're messing with the hardwire in their brains. Everyone's made different, but men have to be men, and boys grow up to be men. You have to allow them to do that. When you don't, when you like give them ADHD medications and tell them that they can't go climb a tree, that they can't be busy in the classroom, like these are the results. You have to let boys be boys.
But Tim, some parents might hear that and their kids might need those medications.
I need those medications. I do. You know, I according to every single teacher or doctor at the time is like, you know, this kid has an ADHD problem. We got to get this kid on medications. My parents were like, do you know what? We're going to put him in sports. We're going to put him in martial arts. We're going to give him activities that become, you know, constructive and a very healthy way to use the energy and to channel the energy. Now, like a Special Forces sniper, Ranger, Green Beret, UFC fighter, actor, like I don't even know what I'm going to do, but I still have that same energy. And that's a great thing. That got us to the moon. That defeated the communists. That stopped the fascists and the real Nazis in Normandy. I mean, those weren't little boys and girls that were storming the beaches. Those were men that met a call, and had they not had that characteristic hardwired in them, we'd all be speaking German right now, and we'd have real supremacists here.
Tim, you mentioned, you know, in the military, there's a sense of purpose we all have, right? You're fighting for something greater than yourself. Alongside raising real men, how do we best instill purpose, a larger understanding of oneself into young men?
Yeah, so masculinity, it's not this like bravado, tough guy, chest pounding thing, right? It's not a bunch of apes like walking down the street being like, rah, 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 rah. You know what it is? It's a beautiful purpose, and that purpose is to serve something. Sometimes it's to protect. Sometimes it's to provide. Sometimes it's to be an explorer, to be a creator. And all of those elements right now are being demonized by our culture. There's like, no, it's not okay for you to be a protector. It's not okay to hold a chair, to open a door. It's not okay to imagine yourself going to Mars. Those are exactly the things that we should be doing. Like that is exactly what we should be telling our young men to aspire to. When we have the lowest participation in high school sports right now, with special operations across the board, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, when you're struggling to find recruits because this new generation is just being hammered about what they're supposed to be. And what they're supposed to be is a beautiful realization of growing into a man.
And there's a difference between men and women. We should admit that.
It's a beautiful difference.
Right.
A beautiful difference.
And
Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of what he was talking about, at least on that topic. Now, when you were seeing this online, for the most part, they were just taking the first question, which was about a minute, and making that the main clip. And the idea there is that he's saying, oh, well, boys aren't allowed to play with, like, hang on trees, and they're not allowed to be rambunctious in the classroom. And then people are saying, oh, that's what you think the issue with the school shooter was. It's not something bigger. And I think people tend to assume that an act like shooting up a middle school or shooting up a Walmart or something like that is also a masculine thing to do, more so than a feminine thing to do. But the point he's making, just from a general sense, is just that if you kind of have a lot of the traditional masculine traits, if you're a protector, if you have self-confidence, that you're probably not going to do these types of things. And I'm not going to pull up pictures of these shooters. I don't think it's worth giving them that extra attention. But if you haven't seen the pictures, a game I would play in your mind would just be to imagine a kid in high school, or just really a kid in any school, who would go up to a bully and give them their lunch money rather than take their beating. Just be like, here, just take it. I don't want any more trouble. Imagine that kid. That's probably a pretty close. The picture in your mind is probably pretty close to the picture of the people who shot up the school. Like, these weren't kids who were traditionally masculine, or I guess you could say men, but I don't know. They really acted like men, obviously, based on what they did. It seemed as though there's a lot of self-confidence. Good chance they were all incels or involuntarily celibate, so they weren't having relationships with women. So I think the general point he's making, even if you don't agree with it, like it's not like he's way off base with it. But that takes us to the articles that we are getting on this. So Middle Easy put up an article saying Tim Kennedy, not enough masculinity causes shootings. And Kennedy's response was, come on, that's a gross misrepresentation of what I said. Read my post about masculinity. If you want me to clarify, let me know. And then their response was, headline withstanding, I think we were fair in the body of the post. We'll add your IG post for further clarification. Agree with a lot of your points in your IG post, and they make more sense than the soundbite floating out there. So right here is an admission of them saying, well, we kind of get what your point was. It's at least somewhat reasonable. We see where you're going with it. The problem is that here they're saying in our body, we kind of see where you're going with it. We don't think it's that crazy. But in the headline, we're going to make it seem as though it's much different. This is just a really big problem with the media in general. And just to put this in general, I guess, digital marketing terms, there's something called impressions and click-through rate that's fairly common, especially for digital media or for a lot of these journalism sites, in that an impression is anytime someone sees your post, and then the click-through rate is the percentage of people who actually click on it. So an impression would be someone saying Tim Kennedy, not enough masculinity causes shootings, and whatever that issue with the formatting was, or not enough masculinity causes shootings. The click-through rate would be the amount of people who then click on that article and read the article in its entirety. If they are getting a very high click-through rate, that would be like 2%. I highly doubt they're getting a 2% click-through rate. I'm just being very generous just for the sake of proving my point. If they're getting a 2% click-through rate, that means 98% of the people who see this post will not bother to look through and read the body of the post. And let's pretend that they're getting this 2% click-through rate. Of the people who actually click through, there will probably be a bunch of people who click through and be like, oops, didn't mean to click that, let me go back. And they won't even read the post. There may be some who actually say, hey, let me actually look at it. They might read a couple lines and be like, all right, I get the gist of this, I'm done. So even among the people who click through, they're not going to read the entire post and actually see, oh, what Kennedy said was fairly on point here. So what ends up happening is that if you're saying it's a 90 or saying it's a 2% click-through rate, you're saying 98% of the people who see this post at a minimum are not going to understand that there's further context to this. And that's sort of the point that I made here is like, you know damn well the majority of the people who read the headline don't click on the article, saying that the body's fair, but is saying that the percentage of people who got a fair story equals your click-through rate at best. So really that's the point there, is just from a general journalism standpoint, this is one of the reasons why things are just getting so bad, and you're hearing fake news thrown around a lot, and a lot of these big sites that you used to think were fairly trustworthy are having issues, is that a lot of them are giving false news to those who are just getting impressions because what they're reading on the headline is not exactly conveying the story properly. And even when people do read the story, sometimes the story itself is reasonable, which is what Middle Easy is saying here, but oftentimes the story itself isn't reasonable either. So this is the kind of shit that really causes a lot of problems for journalism. It's not good for Tim Kennedy that he's taking a little hit here. I don't think he really cares too much. I don't know if it's going to affect him. I think the people who like Tim Kennedy to begin with, listen to him in full context, would probably agree with him. The people who don't like Tim Kennedy weren't going to like him anyway. So really no big effect for him there, but this kind of shit's shady, and it probably should stop sometime soon because it's been causing problems, and it goes just beyond MMA, but this was just a recent example.